Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Tonight I'm joined by Chris McElwain, and it's Champions League. It's a qualifier, it's a home leg, and it's Celtic versus Kairat Almaty of Kazakhstan. The team is out, Chris. Obviously, we did a bit of a deep dive earlier on today talking about our aspirations in the Champions League, why it's so important to Celtic.
Have we lost Mr. Dykes? I seem to have lost Mr. Dykes. I don't know if anyone else can hear me. If you can let me know in the comments whether or not you can see me or it's me that's dropped out, that would be ideal.
It seems fine at this end, mate.
Paul John at the moment.
It seems absolutely fine at this end.
To let us know what you can see on the feed, that would be ideal. And we'll hopefully get Paul John back if it is Paul John that's dropped out. But I think we are live. Let me see if I can get... Oh, are you back, Paul?
I was never away, mate, to be honest. So everything's good at this end. The signal is absolutely fine.
Was it me that dropped out then?
I could hear you. I could see you. Everything was fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do is look at the Celtic side that faces Kairat tonight. It's Kasper Schmeichel in goals, Alistair Johnston at right back with Kieran Tierney at left back, and your central defensive partnership is Cameron Carter-Vickers and Liam Scales. In the midfield, we have Callum McGregor, Rio Atate and Ben Nygren, not on the right wing. And up top, it's James Forrest, Dyson Maid on the left, and of course, Adam Idah through the middle. The substitute bench, some interesting additions in there. Sinisalo, of course, is in there. Simpson Pusey never made an appearance for Celtic. Our on loan Manchester City player who won't be here next season might make his debut tonight in a Champions League qualifier. That also happened to someone else on the bench. It was Dane Murray, but he wasn't on loan for Man City. We've got Trusty. We also have Yang, McCowan, Shin, Osmond is on the bench, Johnny Kenny, Arnie Engels, Paulo Bernardo and Tony Ralston. First look at that team, not exactly how we predicted it today, but it's a strong team nonetheless, Chris.
Yeah, just evidence that Brendan clearly doesn't watch us or listen to us anyway. I think he watches the show, he just doesn't listen to us because we both opted for Nygren on the right, with hoping for Forrest to come on and make an impact late on. But we also pointed to the fact that Brendan is nothing if not stubborn. I think he sticks to his guns more often than not. Overall, look, I think it's a strong enough team to get the job done tonight. The concern with the lineup is that we're quite dependent on a number of these players, so you're hoping we don't get any injuries. You're hoping they have a good performance and we come through with a few goals to our name. There's some debate over, players like would Adam Idah play tonight? He's obviously a player we think needs confidence. I would agree. I think he needs a couple of goals. I think it's a good game to get it because I don't think we have. I don't think we're up against necessarily the strongest opposition tonight. So it's maybe a good opportunity for him to get the confidence going. As I pointed out earlier today, though, the counterpoint to that is if he doesn't have a good game tonight, it's again going to raise further question marks. But look, on paper, that team should be enough to get the job done tonight. So I'm feeling nervous but optimistic.
Well, I'm quite confident actually about this evening's game. I have been since the draw was made. The issue I've got is the away leg, and obviously I've also been speaking about, and I spoke earlier on about the fact that, we're going into this game, there should be absolutely no question marks over the starting 11. And there's a point I would like to make at the moment. If you look at that starting 11, count how many of those players in the starting 11 were signed by Brendan Rodgers over now 5 transfer windows. Let's have a wee look. So Kasper Schmeichel obviously was a Brendan Rodgers signing. And then we're moving down to Kieran Tierney. There's number 2. Benjamin Nygren's number 3. And then finally, Adam Idah. Only 4 of the starting 11 start tonight's game, and this is season 3, transfer window 5. Only 4 players. I think that, for me, that highlights just how dysfunctional the recruitment is at Celtic.
I think so. I mean, look, some of the players are there on merit. You look at Carter-Vickers, you look at Idah. It's easy for a manager to adopt those, those players and bring them into the fold. I mean, I think it would be it wouldn't be a great manager who doesn't recognise what they can bring to the table. So, in some senses, you're okay. Good managers can sometimes make the best out of existing players that are there. But you're right. When Brendan comes in and he talks about the need to bring in quality, there's certainly not maybe necessarily as evident on the first team squad, or the first 11 rather, but within the overall squad, there's definitely a dearth of quality there. I don't think if Brendan had got the signings he wanted, we would necessarily be seeing guys like Yang still at the club. Osmond, I think you're right. We would feel free to let a player like him go on loan. So there's a few question marks over some players. But I think at the same time, there's players in there who Brendan has actually improved, I think. I think Rio Hatate is one. Rio Hatate, I think we've started to see the best out of him since Brendan Rodgers came in, which I think is great. I'm hoping this will be a big season for him, at least one more that we have with him. I think, last season we saw, whether it was by virtue of Kyogo leaving and being moved into the strike position, but I thought we started to see the best guys in Idah, who at that point was always a little bit of an inconsistent performer, shall we say, and I think he really exploded onto the scene. And I think we're also starting to see, improvements in players like McGregor and James Forrest, who Brendan's worked with before. So having that existing relationship also helps. McGregor last season, banging goals in for the edge of the box, looked a much more confident player. A couple of wee question marks earlier on in the season, but I thought he showed his quality in the run-in. I think he's started to show it this season as well. And James Forrest, I'm starting to wonder what the guy's secret is, because he still looks like a 25-year-old, and at times this season he's run about like it. So I still think we're seeing Brendan's identity on the team, but it does make you wonder, if he got all the signings that he wants and all the signings that we believe he still wants in, how good could this team be?
No, I mean, the issue is the dysfunction between the gaffer, who can clearly see this, and the fans who are commenting on it every single day. They can see it. But unfortunately, he is not a miracle worker. He can't magic them into the team. He was talking about this yesterday. There are things that are out with his control. Let's bring in some of your comments here. Yep, everybody confirming everything was good. I was moving and my lips were moving and sound was being emitted from my mouth, but you just didn't want to see it or hear it, Chris.
You just went blank. I apologise. You just dropped out, and I didn't know if I was alone or if I was.
No, you're fine. You're definitely not alone. Awesome. Laura Bradburn. There you go. Laura, how you doing? I am in my seat in a sun-drenched Celtic Park wearing my newly acquired coleslaw kit.
Oh, no.
Copycat. We're going to smash them tonight. Come on, you boys in green. Yeah, there is a coleslaw kit behind us as well. I think it was Quinny that called it that on the show the other week. And basically, if you want to win this, maybe I don't know. I don't know if you want to win it or not. But if you do, give us a thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to A Celtic State of Mind on YouTube. And tell us, right, we think this embarrasses the Hoops, this top. Let's go back to the old school fanzine days of Not The View, where they ran a feature called They Embarrassed the Hoops. Tell us a player who you think was so embarrassing that this jersey would look pretty good on them. Just comment in the comment section. Ming's earlier on was Wayne Biggins. We've also got XDG, sounds like some kind of data specialist, 83X. The coleslaw kit just flows off the tongue. I hope you have a nice night, Laura. Yes, I second that, Laura. I hope you're having a tremendous time at Celtic Park. Make sure you put on the sunscreen, though. Jay Conley, Jay Larkin, obviously it's all about getting through. I take 1-0 and a boring nothing each next week. 5 up would be perfect. We could actually leave a few key players here next week ahead of the Ibrox trip. This is the thing going into this. Yeah, that would be lovely to rest a few players, Chris. But, we spoke earlier on about our record in Kazakhstan. We've no one out there. And so you're going out even with a 3-goal cushion, let's say. I'm being optimistic tonight. I still don't think Brendan would do that, even though it's in the week of that Glasgow derby. I really don't think he would rest them, because it's such a tricky away game, and Brendan knows all about it.
Yeah, I think we take no unnecessary risks in this tie. Whether it be the home game, the away game, both. I think we absolutely have to win this game, because once you win this game, these games out of the way, this double leg tie against Kairat out of the way, and we get through unscathed, it opens up a realm of possibilities in terms of, okay, who are we going to get in the Champions League? We're going to get a huge windfall. If, and this is not a dig, but if, Rangers don't get through, I think we get the bulk of the revenue, which is fantastic, just moves us further ahead of our rivals, which is never a bad thing. So there's so many incentives, both from a footballing perspective, from what the club prioritises at the moment, which is revenue, and what it could potentially allow us to do, and if give us a real template for sustainable entry into the Champions League. So I don't think it's a tie we can afford to not take as seriously as possible. And as much as it would be nice to rest some players, particularly the game against Rangers coming up, unless we are 8 or 9 goals up by half time tonight, I don't think that's a possibility.
Has that ever happened? And if it did, you'd probably finish the game by the same scoreline, because I've had that thing around the psychology of being so far ahead in the first half of a game, and then no matter what you do in the second half, you can't really add to it. Unfortunately, loads of good comments. Bring them in. Let us know what you think about the team. There was a couple, I think, of disagreements earlier on. The first one was bringing Trusty in for Scales. But my take on it, although I think Trusty is the first choice in that position, I couldn't see him playing because Kairat are not going to have us on the back foot, and that's where I think Trusty's at his best. Scales is in there for his passing ability, although his passing wasn't brilliant up at Pataudry. And I would have kept, basically play all your informed players. I'd have kept Ingles in the midfield, and I would have played Nygren outright. Chris, you also suggested that. But Big Adam would have started for me. Now, the coleslaw kit, says Kieran, is that gipping or jipping? I'm not sure what that term means. I don't know if it's good. It could be great. Who knows what you're saying? It might be a really nice top. I'm not sure. Does it mean, is that positive or negative, Kieran? Let us know. If it was honking or bogging, I would understand that. That's on me, Kieran, not on you, mate. And we've also got Simon Fideni. I'd settle for Idah just having a good game. Right, I'm going to go back to the big conversation we had yesterday, all around this Jamie Vardy rumour. And it is just a rumour at this stage, but it is a rumour that made it as far as Sky Sports, who attend, I would think, to do a wee bit of checking, source checking on these stories. And they ran with it. And my take on that was, I'd rather have Adam Idah. I think Adam Idah last season, yes, in and out the team, not always a starter, partly down to Idah being so good at centre forward for large parts of the second half of the season. But I think his return was good enough. And in particular, I think his Champions League performances were very impressive, Chris. Yeah, a good game would be fantastic. Why not? He's shown us that he can. So, I mean, I'm expecting nothing less than that from Adam Idah tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a big game for him. I think he's got a lot to prove. I mean, look, I'm still on Adam Idah's side at the moment. I think I agree with you. I think he's done enough for me to justify signing. What I think he still has to do is demonstrate that he merits a recurring place in this starting 11. At the moment, I think we've got a better striker having to play out in the wing. That's down to recruitment issues at the moment. I think Maeda is, if we had him available to play up front, I think he would be a better choice up front at this moment in time than Adam Idah. I think Adam Idah is our default number one striker at the moment because of that situation. And look, he is a man for the big moments. He's a man for the big game occasion. I think the issue that he has is doing it on a week-to-week basis. We used to level criticism at Samaras, for example. He'd do great in the glamour ties, but he wouldn't necessarily be able to do it week on week because he'd kind of, just couldn't get himself motivated or just couldn't keep the consistency. I think there's an element of that in Adam Idah. I'm not comparing the players like for like, but just that frustration that he can't carry good form one match into the next match necessarily, and he's not been able to do that consistently. So tonight, what I'd like to see him do is, first and foremost, score a few goals, or even as the last comment said there, just have a good game which positively impacts the match and the result. I mean, if he lays off 4 or 5 goals, then I don't care if he scores them, but he needs to do something meaningful in the game. And if he comes off at some point, or if he finishes a game, I want to see a player who looks as though he'd be prepared to die for the badge. That's kind of what I want to see in Adam Idah at a minimum.
A minimum? What about a maximum? Because that's quite a high bar for a minimum.
I take a hat trick and a couple of assists and that sort of thing. But look, to be fair, nobody wants him to succeed more than I do. And when you look at Jamie Vardy's name carries a lot of weight. Great reputation, fantastic career. Achieved more than a lot of players in his career. But he's 39 years old. He is without a club. I think it would be us doing the player a favour rather than the player doing us a favour if he came to us. And I also think that if we want to look at long-term success, I don't think Jamie Vardy is the profile of player we should be looking at. That's not me denigrating his ability. I'm sure he'd come up here and he probably would still do a job. But I think it would be a shame to do that at the expense of a player who, for me, still carries the potential of Idah.
When I made my argument yesterday, and it was nothing on a personal level against Jamie Vardy, it was more around the bigger picture of the fact that we shouldn't be at that stage.
Yes.
At this point, with 12 days to go of a transfer window where we're trying to qualify for Europe, we shouldn't be at the stage where all the signing options have either been missed, Fitzgarden springs to mind, or aren't good enough in terms of Brendan Rodgers' requirements, or perhaps we can't attain them due to the parameters set out by the non-football department at Celtic. Obviously, wages, age profile, transfer fee. So if this is the final throw of the dice and it's a Rodgers contact book, the Rodgers Rolodex, as we're calling it, that's not good enough. That shows that the recruitment system is indeed broken. So that was my bigger issue. It wasn't a specific issue with the player. It was the fact that this isn't working. And I think when you look at the starting 11 and the fact that only 4 players are in there who have been signed by Brendan Rodgers over a period of 5 transfer windows, there are issues. Mo Kamara, any excuse, Woozy, just to bring up Mo Kamara randomly? No, he's not involved tonight, but yes, he would do that jersey proud with Mo Kamara. And I'm interested to hear from Laura Bradburn once again at the Celtic game. Tune in at the Acsom from the game. Got to go for my man Diego Laxalt and his coleslaw clip. One for the old school Acsom listeners, managed, I would suggest, Laura, by Mark Hughes, perhaps, for the coleslaw team. And Jay Conley, Jay Larkin, I'm going 3-0. Nygren, 2 assists and man of the match. Can see it. Trusty last goal. He'd need to come on for that. I actually thought Trusty would start with his pace to counter their break, but Scales holds on to his place. Moan the hoops. Scales, absolute success story. 100 games for Celtic under his belt. Written off. He would have been on his way if Aberdeen could find another 50 grand or something back in the day. He forced his way into the team. He's there on merit. And we always ask, people have their own preferences when it comes to players, Chris. But we ask Alan Morrison about which player from Trusty or Scales is better suited to the way that Brendan plays. And the point of attack comes from your centre halves. More passes between those two and the goalie than anybody else, right? Sometimes feels like the Bermuda Triangle back there, but because it's not gone anywhere, things just disappear into the ether. However, he seems to have a better passing range. So when we're on the front foot, Liam Scales is your man. If we're defending a la Atalanta, for example, last season, Trusty, albeit Trusty was lining up with Scales in that particular game. I have no concerns with that back 5, none whatsoever. People were talking after the Scottish Cup final about Kasper Schmeichel. He was injured. That's a club issue, by the way. I mean, he's experienced enough, even on the day of that game, to say, I'm not fit. And he should have said he wasn't, and he wasn't fit. That's why he scores an own goal, never saves a penalty, because he wasn't fit. But I wasn't prepared to write him off, Chris. He's still Celtic's number 1. I think Sinisalo will take the gloves. I do think he'll take over as the number 1 at Celtic, but not right now. Kasper Schmeichel's the man. Your 2 fullbacks have been amongst our best players since we started playing competitively this season. Up and down both wings, absolutely brilliant. Johnston's saying that already he's learning from Tierney. That just shows you, Chris, you bring in that quality and it actually brings up the quality of others.
It does. It elevates the players around you. And I think we've seen that. I think the defence looks pretty solid this season so far. It's not an area I'm massively concerned about. But I think Liam Scales, we criticised, and I think justifiably, his passing accuracy against Aberdeen. But the one thing I would say in his favour is, out of all of our central defenders, he is most prepared to play a pass and get the ball moving quickly. It doesn't necessarily always come off, and I think that's a concern. He sometimes misplaces passes where I think he should do better, but he does try a high volume of passes throughout a game, and he is always the most forward thinking of the defenders. Carter Vickers, I think is by far and away the best defender at the club, doesn't play anywhere near the amount of passes that Scales does. If anything, I think Scales maybe has a tendency to rush his passing a little bit too much. That's based on what I see. But at the same time, when he does get the passing right, he can actually be pivotal to our counter-attack and that quick transition from defence to attack. So I've got no issue at all with Liam Scales playing tonight. I agree with you on Trusty. I think Trusty is probably a more traditional type defender, more focused on defensive play, and I think that's fine. It's a good option for the manager to have, and there'll definitely be games where he'll be called upon. And we don't know enough about Pusey yet. He's, it'll be interesting to see if he does get a cameo off the bench, and then see if he plays a part this season. But yeah, I would agree. I don't think there's a huge amount of concern in the back line, with the exception of the left back position and who covers for Tierney throughout the season, because I cannot for the life of me imagine that the manager use Liam Scales in that role all season. He must be in the market for another left back, surely.
If he's in the market for another left back, and by the way, on the back of yesterday's press conference, you're right, because Inamura's obviously not in his plans, then we're needing two wingers. One may or may not be Balikwisha. Some still think we need a centre forward. I said yesterday the way around that is bring in a left winger who's a starting pick and play Maeda through the middle. I would have two of the guys that are on the bench tonight. I'd have them loaned out, Osmond and Kenny. They wouldn't be part of my plans. Shin Yamada, at this moment in time, I'm on the fence. I don't know if he's a better player than anybody else at the football club. But one thing that I do know is that we pointed out that the role of the centre forwards in this Brendan Rodgers side means that the player has to have a work ethic that involves him often doing a lot of things that don't come off for himself. So when Callum McGregor gets the ball tonight, he's turning around, and what you're looking for is Adam Idah coming towards McGregor. So he's not playing off the shoulder of the last man. He's coming towards McGregor, and he's drawing the defenders out, and the pockets of space behind him is where our wingers and AJ and KT will go in. And it's Idah's job, and Kenny does this really well, because this is all about work rate and being aware of your position on the park. Get back in between the sticks, because whatever ball comes in, you're it. And I think the issue with Idah is he's slow to read that, and he's slow to get back in. Kenny does all that, but Kenny, for me, hasn't got the finishing quality. And I've said it before. There's so many times. Sometimes, with regards to the finishing ability, Chris, it's because he's a yard short of the cross. What we need is an Adam Idah who can have the awareness to come deep quickly enough and then get back into that position. If he does that tonight, he'll be on the score sheet. And I think that it will relieve a bit of pressure on the player. Andy, Tony Cascarino, I'm getting flashbacks. I've got PTSD. I think I've seen every game. And by the way, Cascarino wore one of, at the time, the most horrific away jerseys we ever had. It was a zigzag one. It was basically tracking the financial fortunes of Rangers. It ended up down here somewhere.
I remember it was horrible.
Yeah, it was like 50 Shades of Brown. And he wore it. It's become a cult classic, bizarrely. It's become a cult classic. But he wore that one. And yeah, I think that this one would suit his qualities as well. Jungle Lion, always a pleasure to see you popping in for a chat after two games. You could say Henrik. What I love about Henrik is his first and last goals at Celtic Park, right, were against Celtic. His first and last goals at Celtic Park were against Celtic. First one was an OG. The last one was for Barcelona. You might have been at that game. Ian Roy, I'm watching the game from Davos, Switzerland. You get about, young man. I seen you in Barazat Design not too long ago. Just done some fondue and slugging some vino. 4-0 win. You enjoy that vino. I hope it goes well.
I knew I didn't like Ian. I really knew I didn't like Ian. Oh man,
slugging the vino. I love it.
It's so good.
Red, Quinny, all eyes on Idah tonight. Yeah, I think so. It's one of the ones where he's on a short leash with a lot of Celtic fans. What's that down to? Is it the transfer fee? I would say a lot of it is down to the transfer fee, Chris.
Definitely an element of it, yeah. Look, it's not down to the player what a club pays for him, right? The player can't control that. He just has to be prepared to come to the football club, and Adam Idah done that. So I think we do have to get past, with both him and Engels, by the way, we need to get past the transfer fee. Let's start judging on what they're doing on the park, and actually on that basis, I would agree. I think the player's under scrutiny because he's, as I said earlier, he's not consistently shown that he can be the number one striker for this club yet. So there is a big opportunity for him tonight, because that's an important game tonight. Take away any preconceptions about the opposition. It doesn't matter who we're playing against. He's got to help the team get us through tonight. And if we can take a 3 or 4 goal cushion into the next game, and Adam Idah is a big contributor to that, I would continue playing him because I think he's a player, like they used to say about a lot of strikers, they thrive on the confidence that goals brings. So I want to see him show the impetus tonight, but I also want to the supporters to get behind him if he is having a good game. Let's back our player until he gives us a reason not to.
Yeah, I do back him, absolutely do. And I think, the big goals will come. I'm hoping that it starts tonight. He was obviously rested against Falkirk. There were chances given to Johnny Kenny and Idah. We'll see how it develops with those two players. Interestingly enough, we just signed Johnny on, so it could well be that that's to retain the value of the player, and any loan deal that he gets isn't just running down the contract. Thank you, Leon, for supporting the channel. Kasarna, Celts, I don't know what it means. I have no idea. You were talking Latin to me earlier on, Chris. I don't know what languages is.
I don't know what Kasarna is. That's a new one.
I am not even bilingual, never mind multilingual. Here we go. I can't see a 4 or 5-0 tonight, says Eddie Quigley. I hope I'm wrong, but Forrest has 1 goal last season. Idah doesn't do it for me. Maida getting up to speed. Hopefully they click tonight and get this tie all but done. Yeah, I know where you're coming from with those concerns, but I do think even if we have a misfiring front three, we do have creativity in the midfield. Been very, very impressed with Ben Nygren, Chris. Great signing so far.
Yeah, like I said, there are certain players who you look at and you think they'll take a bit of time to bed in. Not with this guy. He looks like he's tailor-made for that midfield. His command has looked comfortable, very, very assured on the ball, carries the ball forward, very forward-thinking as well. I mean, when he releases the ball, tends to pick out one of our players, which is great, but he doesn't stop there. His movement then to get in and around the box and get into dangerous positions, he's always making himself available for the pass. Just on my reflections of the player so far, I think he's one of these guys that's got real good football intelligence. I think he's got, this ability to read the game and, anticipate quite well. So, yeah, I think it will depend on him tonight. I think he is going to be a big creative outlet. I think he shares some of the burden that was always placed on Hatate. I think it also alleviates some of the work that Kalmak has to do. So I think actually as a midfield three so far this season, I think they've performed very, very well. Encouragingly, Engels in the game against Falkirk looked, as though he'd upped his levels as well. Maybe the competition that Nygren's brought is doing that, and that's what you want, right? You want other players, as you say, bring in quality. It elevates the players around you, either by virtue of playing alongside quality or that they're bringing a high level of competition. So, yeah, I can't see a downside to the signing so far. Ticks all the boxes, even in terms of the scouting, the amount we got him for. I think he could be a standout this season.
Well, let's hope so. The one big thing I was saying about Engels was the fact that he has all the physical attributes, but he didn't have that aggression, very much like the Austin Trusty issue, I would say. So I think that in building that up, for me, it would definitely make him the player that we thought we were getting for £11 million. For me, the price tag, Chris, shouldn't really be as big a talking point, because the normalisation of signing players within that bracket is where we should be as a club that's trying to progress in the Champions League. But it's one of the things, it will take a long time for that to be normalised. It will take a few signings to come in and be absolute, unmitigated successes. So here's the thing with Arnie Engels tonight. He's on the bench, and hopefully that fills his desire to get his place back. And when he does get the chance, then I hope that he takes it, because I've been standing up for him. Use it as a T-tool, says Jungle Line. I think they're talking about this kit behind me here. Aero 250, Tierney assist, Idah brace, and Forrest Worldy. Yeah, listen, I would like to see him getting off the mark. Last season, people were saying that this 17 seasons in a row thing, that it was 16 seasons last season, league games only. Well, just surely a competitive game then. Any competitive game, surely.
Absolutely.
The slabbering cabbage. Anyone else feel like going out into the street in their Y fronts and doing the New Zealand chant and dance? Or is that just me? Yeah, I don't know what you've been up to today, slabbering cabbage, but it looks like you've had a good one. So hopefully that continues throughout the evening, and you're celebrating at the end of the night. The coleslaw shirt is the worst Celtic shirt in the last 25. Is it worse than the pink and silver number that we never wore with the chevron? Is it worse than that?
Between that one and the lizard print, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's definitely in the top 3 or 4. I would say it's of the worst. The bottom 3 or 4 maybe is a better way of saying it. Yeah, I'm not a fan. When I was looking this one out, and actually this one's a lot tighter than it used to be. So apologies if I'm
I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, it never used to be quite this tight. But this shirt, actually, I was caught out just by how nice a shirt this was. And it's one that had the sponsor, but I kind of took the sponsor off. It was quite easy to take the sponsor off. So this was one of the ones that was released at the time, and it's the Lisbon anniversary one. But it's just a nice shirt, actually. And when you see shirts like this, you do look at some of the current range and think, it's not that hard. It's not that hard.
It is a uniform so simple in its style, some might say. Thanks every single one of you for getting involved. Go away and enjoy the game. Quick prediction from Chris before we go.
Do you know what? And our esteemed colleague Jerry Taylor made a prediction earlier, and I'm going to stick with it because I like the optimism. So I'm going to go 4-0 tonight.
Oh, yes. I like the sound of that. Right, get your predictions in. Get the Embarrass the Hoops players into the comments section and go and enjoy the first 45 and then rejoin Chris and I at halftime on a Celtic State of Mind.
One hoops.